The fire alarm screamed at 5:47 a.m. Marcus Webb didn't think he ran straight into the flames. 7 floors of smoke and hell stood between him and the woman whose screams cut through the roar. He kicked down the door, lifted her onto his shoulder, carried her down through fire that wanted them both dead. 3 hours later, he walked into the most important job interview of his life. The woman behind the desk looked up. Same face, same eyes, same woman he'd pulled from the flames. She held his file in bandaged hands and whispered, "Mr. Webb, we meet again. Comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story has traveled." The smoke alarm at the Grandview Hotel cut through Marcus Webb's sleep at exactly 5:47 in the morning. He was already awake. 3 hours of restless sleep interrupted twice by phone calls. He couldn't answer bill collectors who didn't care that it was the middle of the night, who didn't care that his daughter's medication cost more than his rent, who didn't care about anything except the $200 he couldn't pay. Marcus sat up in the hotel bed, disoriented for a moment. The room was cheap, the cheapest he could find near downtown Chicago. He'd driven 4 hours yesterday for this interview, spent money he didn't have on gas, and this room because this one job could change everything. Operations Director at Meridian Technologies. $67,000 salary. Full benefits. Health insurance that would cover Sophie's heart medication. His daughter was 7 years old. She had a congenital heart defect that required daily medication, costing $287 per month, and quarterly specialist visits costing $800 each. Without insurance, the math didn't work. It hadn't worked in 2 years. The smoke alarm kept screaming. Marcus pulled on his pants, moved toward the door, touched the handle. Hot. Not burning hot, but warm enough to mean trouble. He opened the door anyway. The hallway was filling with gray smoke-thin tendrils curling along the ceiling. People were emerging from rooms in various states of undress, confused, scared. A hotel employee ran past, shouting for everyone to evacuate. Marcus should have followed, should have walked down the stairs, joined the crowd in the parking lot, waited for the fire department. The interview was in 3 hours. His borrowed suit hung in the closet. His entire future depended on walking into that conference room looking professional, competent, like a man who had his life together. But then he heard it. A scream, faint, desperate, coming from above. "Anyone hear that?" Marcus grabbed a passing guest. "That sound from upstairs." "Man, I'm getting out of here. You should too." The scream came again. Weaker now. Marcus ran for the stairwell. The door was already hot when he pushed through. Smoke thickened as he climbed each floor, worse than the last. His lungs burned. His eyes watered. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back. 4th floor. The smoke grew black. 5th floor. He could barely see his own hands. 6th floor. The heat pressed against his skin like a living thing. 7th floor. He pushed through the stairwell door and stepped into hell. The hallway was an inferno. Flames danced across the ceiling, fed by something chemical, something that shouldn't be in a hotel. The sprinklers had activated, but the water only made steam that mixed with the smoke, creating a choking fog that reduced visibility to almost nothing. "Hello?" Marcus dropped to his knees where the air was clearer. "Anyone here?" A sound. Weak. Desperate. "Help! Please!" He crawled toward the voice, passing open doors, abandoned rooms. Most guests had evacuated, but one door remained closed. Room 714. The handle was burning hot. Marcus wrapped his shirt around his hand and tried it anyway. Locked. "Get away from the door," he shouted. "I'm coming through." He drove his shoulder into the wood. Pain exploded through his arm, but the door held. Again. The frame cracked. Again. On the 4th hit, the door burst open. The room was filled with choking smoke. By the window collapsed against the wall, he saw her. A woman in business clothes, dark hair matted with sweat, eyes barely open. She had tried to open the window. He could see scratch marks on the frame. but it was jammed or painted shut. "I've got you." Marcus moved to her side. "We're getting out." He stripped off his shirt, wrapped it around her face as a makeshift filter. Then he lifted her onto his shoulder the way he'd been trained to carry people during his 3 years as a volunteer firefighter back in his 20s. She was lighter than he expected. Or maybe adrenaline made her seem that way. She coughed against his shoulder, then whispered something. "What? Not? An accident? What do you mean?" But her body went limp, unconscious. The hallway was worse now. Fire had spread with terrifying speed, eating through walls like they were made of paper. Behind him, a window exploded, feeding the flames with fresh oxygen. Marcus ran. 7 floors down. His legs screamed with each step. The woman's weight shifted on his shoulder, threatening to throw off his balance. Smoke filled his lungs despite his best efforts to breathe shallow. 5th floor, 4th, 3rd. On the 2nd floor she stirred. Her hand gripped his arm with surprising strength. "Don't let me die." "I won't. Promise me." "I promise." He burst through the lobby door into chaos. Fire trucks filled the parking lot. Paramedics rushed toward him, taking the woman from his shoulder, pressing an oxygen mask to her face. She opened her eyes one more time, looked directly at him. "Not an accident," she whispered. "Someone did this. Someone tried to—" Then her eyes closed and they wheeled her away. A woman with sharp eyes and a badge stepped into Marcus's path. "Sir Detective Reyes, arson investigation. I need your statement. This fire shows signs of being deliberately set." Arson. The word connected with what the woman had whispered. "Here's my number." Marcus pressed a crumpled receipt with his phone number into the detective's hand. "I'll call you back, I promise, but I have to be somewhere." "Sir, this is a crime scene." But Marcus was already walking away into the Chicago dawn, leaving behind the sirens and the smoke and the woman whose name he didn't know. The woman whose life he had just saved. The interview was in 2 hours. Marcus found a Target 3 blocks away, open early, for some reason that felt like divine intervention. He stood in the bathroom staring at his reflection. His shirt was gone, wrapped around the woman's face, somewhere in an ambulance. His pants were soaked with sweat and spotted with ash. His hands were blistered from the hot door handle. The borrowed suit was back at the hotel, probably destroyed by smoke damage. He had $67 in his wallet, an emergency credit card with a $500 limit. The interview was in 2 hours. Marcus started shopping with the desperation of a man who had nothing left to lose. White dress shirt, $22. Cheapest one they had, slightly too big in the shoulders. Black tie, $15. Polyester, but it would do from a distance. Bandages for his hands, $8. Travel size cologne, $12. He changed in the bathroom stall, scrubbing his face until the skin was raw, washing ash from his hair in the sink. The new shirt didn't match his pants perfectly, but the colors were close enough. His hands looked terrible. Blistered raw, wrapped in white bandages that screamed, "Something happened to this man." He checked his phone. A text from his mother. "Sophie woke up asking about you. Says she drew you a good luck picture. Call when you can. We love you." Below that, a voicemail notification. The hospital. Sophie's cardiologist appointment had been moved up due to concerning readings at her last checkup. Marcus closed his eyes, steadied his breathing. One thing at a time. Get the job. Get the insurance. Save Sophie. Everything else could wait. He walked out of Target looking like a man who had almost died that morning, because he was, and headed toward the interview that could save his daughter's life. Meridian Technologies occupied the top 15 floors of a glass tower in downtown Chicago. The lobby was all polished marble and expensive art filled with people in tailored suits who moved with the confidence of those who belonged. Marcus did not belong here. 2 years ago, he had been senior operations manager at a manufacturing company in Detroit. Good salary, good benefits, good life. Then the company was acquired, his position eliminated, and everything fell apart. His wife had left 6 months after the layoff. Couldn't handle the stress, she said. Needed someone more stable. She'd signed over full custody of Sophie like their daughter was a piece of furniture she no longer wanted. Marcus had spent the next 18 months working whatever jobs he could find: warehouse shifts, delivery routes, even a stint as a night security guard while sending out applications that went nowhere. This interview was his first callback in 11 months. He took the elevator to the 14th floor, checked in with the receptionist, sat in the waiting area, trying not to think about how he looked, how he smelled, how the bandages on his hands made him look like a man with problems. Mr. Webb, a young man in an expensive suit, smiled at him. "They're ready for you. Conference room B." Marcus straightened his cheap tie, and walked toward the doors. The conference room was smaller than he expected. 4 people sat around an oval table, tablets and folders spread before them. "Mr. Webb?" A woman at the head of the table gestured to an empty chair. "Please have a seat. I'm Patricia Holden, VP of Human Resources. This is James Chen, our CFO. Maria Vasquez, Operations Director for our Western Division. And—" The door opened behind Marcus. He heard heels clicking on hardwood, smelled something familiar. Smoke, faint but present, mixed with hospital antiseptic. "And this," Patricia continued, "is Catherine Blackwell, CEO of Meridian Technologies." Marcus turned. The woman walked in slowly, each step careful and deliberate. She wore a perfectly tailored black suit, a small bandage at her temple, redness around her eyes from smoke exposure. She stopped when she saw him. The color drained from her face. Her hands shot out to grip the doorframe for support. "You," she whispered. "You're Webb." Marcus couldn't speak. The woman from the fire. The woman he had carried down 7 floors. The woman who had whispered about accidents and arson before losing consciousness. His interviewer. The CEO of the company that could save his daughter's life. The same woman. Silence filled the conference room. Patricia looked between them, confused. "Miss Blackwell, is everything—" "Give us the room." "I'm sorry. Everyone out, now." The command left no room for argument. James, Maria, and Patricia gathered their things and filed out, exchanging bewildered glances. The door closed behind them. Catherine Blackwell stood perfectly still, studying Marcus like he was a puzzle she couldn't solve. "3 hours ago," she said finally, "a fire broke out at my hotel. I was on the 7th floor, trapped, when a man kicked down my door and carried me to safety." She walked toward him slowly. "I never saw his face clearly. The smoke was too thick. But I remembered his voice. He promised he wouldn't let me die." She stopped 3 feet away. "Now that same man is sitting in my conference room applying for a job at my company." Her eyes narrowed. "That's quite a coincidence, Mr. Webb." "It wasn't planned." "Then how do you explain it?" "I can't." Marcus met her gaze directly. "I was staying at that hotel because it was cheap and close to this building. I heard you screaming. I didn't know who you were. I just knew someone needed help." "And you didn't think to mention this when you arrived?" "What was I supposed to say? Hi, I pulled your CEO out of a burning building this morning. Can I have a job?" That sounds like manipulation. Does it? Yes. And I didn't come here for charity. I came because I need this job, not because of what happened this morning, but because my daughter is sick and I can't afford her medication without insurance. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out a chair and sat across from him. "Tell me about your daughter." The question surprised him. "What? You mentioned she's sick. Tell me about her." Marcus hesitated. This wasn't how interviews worked. But something in Catherine's expression, exhaustion, curiosity, maybe something else, made him answer honestly. "Sophie, she's 7. Congenital heart defect. Requires daily medication that costs $287 a month, and quarterly specialist visits that cost $800 each. Without insurance, I've been paying out of pocket, and I'm almost out of money." "Where is she now?" "With my mother in Detroit. I drove here yesterday because I couldn't afford a flight. Spent the night at that hotel because it was $79 a night, and I couldn't find anything cheaper." Catherine absorbed this. And her mother. Left 2 years ago. Signed over full custody. She calls sometimes. Sends birthday presents. Marcus kept his voice neutral. Sophie doesn't talk about her much anymore. I'm sorry. Don't be. We're better off. Sophie and my mother and me, we take care of each other. Something shifted in Catherine's expression. Something that looked almost like recognition. Your resume says you were a senior operations manager at Hartley Manufacturing. Left after the acquisition. Position was eliminated. Your references are strong. Previous employers speak highly of you. She paused. But there's an 18-month gap. What happened? I've been working. Warehouse jobs, delivery routes, anything I could find. But operations positions are competitive, and after a certain point, the gap becomes a red flag. So why should I hire you? Marcus leaned forward. Because I'm not going to pretend I'm not desperate. I am. My daughter needs surgery that will cost $40,000, even with insurance, and if I don't find stable employment soon, I'll have to sell the house my mother raised me in just to keep Sophie alive. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. But I'm also good at what I do. I increased efficiency at Hartley by 23% in my first year. I built systems that are still running today, and I work harder than anyone you'll interview because I have more to lose. Catherine studied him. You could have mentioned the fire, used it as leverage. Why didn't you? Because I didn't save you for leverage. I saved you because you were in danger, and that's what people do, or what they should do. Marcus's voice hardened. If you hire me because you feel obligated, I'll always wonder if I actually earned my position. Sophie will grow up thinking her father got ahead by luck, not skill. I won't do that to her. Even if it costs you the job? Even then. Silence stretched between them. Then Catherine did something Marcus didn't expect. She smiled. Small, barely a curve of her lips, but it transformed her face entirely. The position we advertised is Operations Director. $67,000 full benefits standard corporate package. She stood and walked to the window. But I have a different role in mind for you. Different how? This morning's fire wasn't an accident, Mr. Webb. Someone wanted me dead. She turned to face him. I've received threats for weeks. Encrypted emails, anonymous calls, references to accidents that will happen if I don't change certain business decisions. Have you told the police? The police are investigating. But police investigations take time, and I don't know how much time I have. She moved back toward him. I need someone I can trust. Someone who isn't already part of this company, isn't connected to whoever is behind this. You don't know me. I know you ran into a burning building to save a stranger. I know you refused to use that act for personal gain. Her eyes met his. That tells me more about your character than any interview could. What exactly are you offering? Director of Security and Crisis Management. $85,000 salary. Full benefits, immediate enrollment. Company housing if you need to relocate. She paused. And complete access to investigate whoever tried to kill me this morning. Marcus felt his heart rate increase. Why me? You must have professionals who handle this sort of thing. My head of security resigned last month. Suddenly, without explanation, right around when the threat started. Catherine's voice was flat. I don't know who I can trust inside this company, but I know I can trust a man who almost died saving my life. You're asking me to put myself in danger. I'm asking you to help me find out who's trying to destroy everything I've built. And in exchange, I'm offering you the chance to save your daughter. The words hung between them. Marcus thought about Sophie, her smile when he came home from work, the way she hugged him when she was scared, the drawings she made him every week with crayon hearts and stick figures holding hands. He thought about his mother working double shifts at the diner to help pay bills. Never complaining, never asking for anything. He thought about the $4,200 hospital bill sitting on his kitchen table and the voicemail from the cardiologist about concerning readings. If I take this job, he said slowly, I need something in writing. The salary, the benefits. Sophie's coverage, all of it ironclad before I start. Done. And I need time off when she has appointments. Non-negotiable. Done. And I need you to understand something. Marcus stood, meeting her eyes directly. I didn't save you for money or a job or anything except because it was right. If I take this position and we find out who's behind the threats, that doesn't change. I don't owe you my conscience. I work for you, but I don't belong to you. Catherine extended her hand. I wouldn't want you any other way. They shook. Her grip was firm, her palm still rough from the burns, and Marcus felt the weight of everything shifting his future. Sophie's future. The strange collision of fate that had put him in that hotel at that exact moment. Welcome to Meridian Technologies, Mr. Webb. That night, Marcus sat in his car in the parking garage, phone pressed to his ear. You got the job? His mother's voice cracked with emotion. Marcus, that's wonderful. Better than the job, Mom. They're offering full benefits, immediate coverage. Sophie's medication, her appointments, all of it covered. Silence. Then a sound that might have been crying. Mom. I'm fine. I've been so worried. Every day watching you struggle, watching Sophie need things we couldn't afford. Her voice broke. I prayed every night, Marcus. Every single night. I know, Mom. Can I tell Sophie? Put her on. A moment of shuffling, then a small voice filled the phone. Daddy? Hey, baby girl. Grandma says you got a job. Is it a good job? It's a very good job. It means I can get you the medicine you need and we can see your heart doctor more often. Will you have to go away? The question made Marcus's chest ache. Maybe for a little while, but I'll call you every day, and as soon as I get settled, you and Grandma can come visit. Promise? I promise, Sophie. Daddy. Yeah? I made you a picture. It's a rainbow over a tall building. Grandma says it's your new work, and there's a person on top. Who's the person? That's you, Daddy. Because you're the highest one. Because you never give up. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling tears threaten. I love you, baby girl. I love you too, Daddy. To the moon and the stars, and all the way back. All the way back, he repeated. He sat in the car for a long time after hanging up, watching the Chicago lights flicker on as darkness fell. This morning, he had been a desperate man running into fire. Tonight, he was something else. He didn't know what yet. Didn't know what Catherine Blackwell's enemies were capable of, or what he would discover in the weeks ahead, or how deep this conspiracy went. But he knew one thing for certain: whatever came next, he wouldn't run. Not from fire. Not from threats, not from whatever darkness had tried to kill Catherine Blackwell and might try again. He had a daughter who believed he could stand on top of tall buildings. He wasn't going to prove her wrong. The first week at Meridian Technologies felt like walking through a minefield blindfolded. Marcus arrived at 7 a.m. on Monday, still wearing the cheap shirt from Target, because he hadn't had time to buy anything else. Catherine had arranged temporary housing, a furnished apartment 15 minutes from the office, and advanced him 2 weeks' salary so he could ship his belongings from Detroit. His mother and Sophie would follow in a month once he found permanent housing and established Sophie's care with a Chicago cardiologist. You look terrible, Catherine said when he walked into her office. I've been awake since 4 a.m. reading personnel files. Find anything interesting? Your head of security, David Chen, resigned 3 weeks ago after 7 years with the company. No exit interview, no transition period, just a 2-line email, and he was gone. Catherine nodded slowly. I tried calling him. Number disconnected. Went to his apartment, he'd moved out. No forwarding address. That doesn't concern you. It terrifies me. She handed him a tablet. But I couldn't do anything about it. Not without someone I could trust to investigate. Marcus scrolled through the files. What am I looking at? Every threat I've received in the past 8 weeks. Emails, voicemails, even a handwritten note left on my car. All anonymous, all untraceable, at least according to our IT department. You don't trust your IT department. Right now, I don't trust anyone who's been inside this building longer than a week. Catherine's jaw tightened. That includes the executive team. James Chen, your CFO. Any relation to David? Cousins. James recommended David for the security position 7 years ago. And you don't find that suspicious? I find everything suspicious, Mr. Webb. That's why I hired you. Marcus spent the morning reviewing security protocols with the remaining staff. The head of facilities, a nervous man named Robert Pullman, walked him through building access systems with the enthusiasm of someone presenting their own autopsy report. The fire at the Grandview Hotel, Marcus said. You heard about it? Robert's face went pale. Everyone heard about it. Miss Blackwell almost died. The fire investigators think it was arson, deliberately set. I wouldn't know anything about that. I didn't say you would. Marcus watched him carefully. But I'm wondering if there's been any unusual activity here at the building. People accessing areas they shouldn't, security breaches, anything out of the ordinary. Robert shifted his weight. There was one thing. Tell me. 2 weeks ago, someone accessed the server room at 3 a.m. Used David Chen's credentials, except David had already resigned by then. And you didn't report this. I reported it to it. They said it was probably a glitch in the system credentials that hadn't been properly deactivated. Robert's voice dropped. But that didn't make sense to me. David was meticulous. He would have deactivated his own access before he left. Unless he didn't leave voluntarily. Robert's eyes widened. You think something happened to him? I think someone wanted access to those servers badly enough to steal a former employee's credentials. Whether David gave them up willingly or not is what I need to find out. That afternoon, Marcus received a visitor. He was reviewing security footage in his new office when the door opened without warning. A man walked in, tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Marcus's car. Mr. Webb. The man didn't offer his hand. I'm Victor Ashworth, chairman of Meridian's board of directors. Mr. Ashworth, I wasn't expecting. No, you weren't. Victor sat down uninvited, crossing his legs with the casual arrogance of a man who had never been told no. I wanted to meet the hero who saved our CEO's life. Quite remarkable rushing into a burning building like that. Anyone would have done the same. Would they, I wonder? Victor's eyes were cold, calculating. I also wanted to discuss your rather unusual hiring circumstances. Catherine created this position without board approval. Director of Security and Crisis Management. $85,000 salary. Full benefits company housing. Quite generous for someone with no corporate security background. My background is in operations. Crisis management falls under that umbrella. Your background is 18 months of unemployment followed by warehouse work. Victor smiled thinly. I've done my research, Mr. Webb. Hartley Manufacturing let you go. Your wife left you. You've been struggling to pay your daughter's medical bills. That makes you either very motivated or very desperate. Is there a difference? To some people, no. Victor leaned forward. I'm going to be direct with you. Catherine has been making increasingly erratic decisions over the past few months. This fire has only accelerated her paranoia. The board is concerned about her fitness to lead. She almost died. I'd say some caution is warranted. Caution, yes. Hiring strangers off the street and giving them access to sensitive company information. That's not caution. That's instability. Victor stood. I want you to keep me informed of her activities, what she's investigating, who she's talking to, what she suspects. You want me to spy on my employer. I want you to protect the company's interests. Sometimes that means protecting a CEO from herself. He placed a business card on Marcus's desk. Think about it. Your daughter's medical care depends on this job. It would be a shame if budgetary concerns forced us to eliminate your position. Marcus picked up the card, studied it for a moment, then tore it in half. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Ashworth, but I wasn't hired to spy on anyone. Victor's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something dangerous. That's disappointing. I hope you won't regret that decision. He left without another word. Marcus waited until the door closed, then picked up his phone and dialed Catherine's extension. "We need to talk. Your office. Now." Catherine listened to his account of Victor's visit without interrupting. When he finished, she walked to her window and stood with her back to him, shoulders rigid. "He's been positioning against me for months," she said finally, "questioning my decisions in board meetings, building alliances with shareholders who think the company needs fresh leadership. I knew he was ambitious. I didn't realize he was willing to threaten my employees. He didn't threaten me directly. He implied. That's how Victor operates. Everything deniable, nothing provable." She turned to face him. "What else did he say? That you've been making erratic decisions? That the board is concerned about your fitness to lead?" "My fitness?" Catherine laughed bitterly. "6 years ago, I took this company from $50 million in revenue to $400 million. I expanded into 3 new markets, acquired 2 competitors, and increased our stock price by 340%. But one fire, and suddenly I'm unfit." He mentioned other things, decisions over the past few months. What was he referring to? Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Then she walked to her desk and pulled a folder from a locked drawer. "3 months ago, I discovered financial irregularities in our Asian division. Payments to vendors that didn't exist. Contracts with inflated costs. Someone has been siphoning money from the company, millions of dollars over the past 2 years. Did you report it?" "I started an internal investigation, quietly without board involvement, because I didn't know who to trust." She handed him the folder. "The trail leads to a shell company in Singapore. That shell company is owned by another company in the Cayman Islands, and that company is controlled by a trust with an anonymous beneficiary. Someone inside Meridian is stealing from the company and hiding the money offshore. Not just someone. Someone with access to our financial systems at the highest level." Marcus opened the folder, scanning the documents. "You think it's Victor?" "I think Victor has been CFO of 3 companies over the past 15 years. All 3 had unexplained financial losses. All 3 eventually replaced him with generous severance packages and non-disclosure agreements." Catherine's voice hardened. "He's never been caught because he's careful. But I got close. And 3 weeks after I started my investigation, my head of security disappeared, and someone tried to burn me alive." "You think Victor arranged the fire?" "I think Victor has connections and resources I can't even imagine. I think he's been stealing from this company for years, and I'm the only thing standing between him and complete control." She met Marcus's eyes. "And now I think he's going to come after you too." That night, Marcus called Sophie. Her face filled his phone screen. Eyes bright despite the dark circles beneath them. Signs of another bad night. Another struggle with the medication that was supposed to help. "Daddy, Grandma said you have a big office now." "Not that big, but it has a window." "Can you see the whole city?" "Almost. I can see the lake. Lake Michigan. From your books." Sophie's face lit up. "Can we go there when we visit? Can we go swimming?" "Maybe not swimming, the water's pretty cold, but we can walk on the beach, build sandcastles." "I've never built a sandcastle." The statement was so simple, so matter-of-fact, that it hit Marcus like a punch to the chest. 7 years old, and she'd never built a sandcastle. They'd never had the time, the money, the stability to take a vacation anywhere. "Then that'll be the first thing we do," he said. "I promise." "Daddy, you promise a lot of things." "I know, but I mean them." "I know." Sophie smiled. "That's why I believe you." His mother came on screen after Sophie went to bed. Grace Webb looked tired, more tired than Marcus had ever seen her. "How is she really?" he asked. "The new medication is helping with the day-to-day symptoms. But the cardiologist wants to see her next month. Says there are some test results he wants to discuss in person." "In person? That's never good." "Don't borrow trouble, Marcus. We'll deal with whatever comes." Grace paused. "How's the job?" "Complicated." Complicated how? Marcus hesitated. He didn't want to worry his mother, but he also needed someone to talk to. Someone outside the walls of Meridian Technologies. The CEO who hired me, someone tried to kill her. The fire at the hotel wasn't an accident, and I'm pretty sure there's a conspiracy inside the company to steal money and force her out. Silence. Then, Marcus David Webb. Tell me you're not putting yourself in danger. I'm being careful. That's not what I asked. Mom, this job is the only thing standing between Sophie and... He stopped, unable to finish the sentence. I know. Grace's voice softened. I know why you took it, and I know you'll do whatever it takes to keep your daughter safe. But she needs you alive, Marcus. She needs her father. Don't forget that. I won't. Promise me. I promise. After they hung up, Marcus sat in his empty apartment, staring at the Chicago skyline. Somewhere out there, Victor Ashworth was planning his next move. Somewhere out there, answers waited to be found. And somewhere in Detroit, a little girl was counting the days until her daddy could keep his promises. Week 2 brought discoveries. Marcus had been digging through Meridian's financial records, cross-referencing the shell companies Catherine had identified with other corporate payments. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for: thousands of small transactions, each one innocuous on its own, adding up to millions over time. But he found something else. Something that made his blood run cold. The shell company in Singapore, the one receiving stolen funds from Meridian, had made a payment 3 weeks ago. $50,000 to a private security firm in Chicago, a firm that specialized in corporate problem-solving. Marcus was researching the firm when his door opened. Catherine walked in, her face pale. David Chen is dead. What? Police found his body this morning, in a warehouse on the south side. Her voice shook slightly. They're calling it suicide, pills and alcohol. But Marcus, you don't believe it. David didn't drink. He was in AA for 15 years. And he had a daughter 9 years old who he adored. He wouldn't leave her, not voluntarily. Marcus stood, moving toward her. You think Victor had him killed? I think David knew something. Maybe he found the same financial irregularities I did. Maybe Victor paid him to resign quietly and then decided he was a loose end. Catherine's eyes met his. And now you're digging into the same information. You're becoming a loose end too. I can handle myself. David could handle himself too. He was ex-military, trained in security, careful about everything. And now he's dead in a warehouse with pills in his pocket. Catherine grabbed his arm. I shouldn't have involved you in this. I should have hired professional investigators, people who Victor could buy off, people who don't have daughters depending on them. Marcus covered her hand with his. You hired me because I had something to lose. That makes me dangerous to Victor. And right now, dangerous is what you need. She didn't pull away. For a long moment, they stood there, connected by fear and determination, and something else neither of them could name. I found a payment, Marcus said finally. From Victor's shell company to a security firm here in Chicago. $50,000 3 weeks ago. Right before the fire. Right before everything. He showed her the records on his computer. The firm is called Apex Solutions. Officially, they provide corporate security consulting. Unofficially, according to some forums I found, they handle problems that can't be solved through legal channels. Can you prove Victor hired them? Not yet. But I know someone who might be able to help. Detective Reyes met him at a coffee shop in Ukrainian village. She was younger than Marcus expected, mid-30s, sharp eyes, a wariness that came from too many years dealing with people who lied for a living. You're the hero from the hotel fire, she said, sliding into the booth across from him. I'm the guy trying to figure out who started it. So am I. That's literally my job. She pulled out a tablet. But I'm hitting walls. Every lead goes nowhere. Every witness suddenly can't remember anything. Someone with a lot of resources is making sure this investigation stays cold. Victor Ashworth. Rhea's expression didn't change. That's a serious accusation. He's the chairman of a Fortune 500 company. He's also been embezzling from that company for years, and I think he paid a firm called Apex Solutions $50,000 to arrange an accident for Catherine Blackwell. Rhea studied him for a long moment. You have evidence. Financial records, shell companies, a payment trail that connects Victor to a firm known for solving problems outside legal channels. Marcus slid a folder across the table. And a dead man named David Chen, who knew too much. Chen, the security director who committed suicide last week. You don't believe it either. I believe people don't usually drink themselves to death when they've been sober for 15 years. Reyes opened the folder, scanning the documents. This is good, better than anything I've found. But it's not enough for an arrest. What do you need? I need someone inside that company willing to testify. I need financial records that can be verified independently. And I need something connecting Victor directly to the fire, not through shell companies and security firms, but him personally. There's a board meeting next week. Catherine thinks Victor is going to make his move, then try to force her out, take control of the company. If he does that, he can bury the investigation forever. Then we have a week to find what we need. Reyes closed the folder. I shouldn't be doing this. Everything in the rulebook says I should tell you to stay out of it. Let the professionals handle it. But someone tried to burn a woman alive in a hotel room, and the same people probably killed a man who had a 9-year-old daughter waiting for him to come home. Her jaw tightened. I've got a daughter too. She's 7. Mine's 7 too. Then you understand. Reyes stood, tucking the folder under her arm. I'll run these through my contacts. See if I can trace the payment to Apex. You keep digging inside the company. But Marcus... I know. Be careful. More than careful. Victor Ashworth has been doing this for a long time. He's survived investigations, audits, board battles. He's patient, and he's ruthless, and he doesn't leave loose ends. I don't plan on being a loose end. Neither did David Chen. The words followed Marcus all the way back to his apartment. That night, he video called Sophie again. She showed him a picture she'd drawn: a tall building with a man standing on the roof, arms outstretched like he was flying. That's you, Daddy. You're protecting the building from bad guys. There are bad guys. There are always bad guys, but you always beat them because you never give up. Sophie tilted her head. Daddy, can I tell you a secret? Anything. Sometimes at night I get scared. My heart does the thumpy thing and I can't breathe right. But then I think about you, and I remember that you're fighting for me even when you're far away. And then I'm not scared anymore. Marcus felt tears threaten. Baby girl, I'm always fighting for you. Always. I know. That's why I'm brave too. She kissed her palm and pressed it to the screen. Good night, Daddy. Beat the bad guys. Good night, Sophie. I love you to the moon. To the moon and the stars and all the way back. The screen went dark. Marcus sat in silence, his daughter's drawing still visible on the screen. A man standing on a building protecting it from enemies he couldn't see. That's what Sophie believed. That's what she needed to believe, that her father was strong enough to face any threat, brave enough to never give up, capable of defeating any enemy. He couldn't let her down. Day 3 of week 2 changed everything. Marcus had been reviewing the security footage from the night David Chen's credentials were used to access the server room. The footage had been erased professionally, thoroughly, by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. But they'd made a mistake. The exterior cameras ran on a different system, one the intruder apparently didn't know about. And those cameras had captured something interesting. At 2:47 a.m. on the night of the breach, a car had pulled into the parking garage. Expensive, dark-colored with a license plate Marcus couldn't quite read. He enhanced the image, adjusted the contrast, ran it through 3 different software programs. And there it was, Victor Ashworth's personal vehicle. Marcus was about to call Catherine when his door opened. 3 men walked in. Security uniforms, but not from Meridian. Different patches. Different company. Mr. Webb. The lead man was large with cold eyes and hands that looked like they'd done real damage. Mr. Ashworth would like to see you. I'm busy. It wasn't a request. The second man moved to Marcus's computer, pulling the flash drive from the port, the flash drive containing the enhanced footage. That's company property. So are you right now? The lead man smiled. Mr. Ashworth is waiting. They took him to the parking garage to a black SUV with tinted windows. Victor sat in the back, tablet in his lap, not looking up, as Marcus was pushed inside. Mr. Webb, I warned you about making the wrong choices. You warned me about a lot of things, and you ignored every warning. Victor finally looked up. I know about your meetings with Detective Reyes. I know about the files you've been collecting. I know about the footage you just enhanced, footage that conveniently no longer exists. Marcus's blood ran cold. You've been watching me. I watch everyone. It's how I've survived this long. Victor leaned forward. You're clever, Mr. Webb. Cleverer than David Chen was. He thought he could gather evidence, build a case, bring me down. He was wrong. You killed him. I solved a problem. There's a difference. Victor's voice was ice. Now I'm solving another problem. You. If you kill me, people will ask questions. Who the CEO who hired you under suspicious circumstances? The board will question her judgment, not mine. Your mother. She's 300 miles away dealing with your sick daughter. Detective Reyes. She's been warned to back off and she's smart enough to listen. Victor smiled. You have no one, Mr. Webb. No allies, no resources, no leverage. You're alone. Then why am I still alive? Because killing you creates complications. Disappearing you is easier. Victor glanced at his watch. In about 10 minutes you're going to leave this building voluntarily. You're going to go back to your apartment, pack your things, and drive back to Detroit. Tomorrow morning you'll call Catherine Blackwell and resign via voicemail. And then you'll never contact anyone at Meridian Technologies again. And if I refuse, then your daughter's cardiologist will receive an anonymous tip about insurance fraud. Your mother will be visited by Child Protective Services, and you'll have an unfortunate accident. Maybe a car crash, maybe a fall, maybe something more creative. Victor's smile widened. I've done this before, Mr. Webb. I'm very good at it. Marcus looked at the men surrounding him. 3 of them professional, armed with the flat eyes of people who did terrible things for money. He thought about Sophie, about the drawing of him standing on a building protecting people from bad guys. He thought about his mother waiting in Detroit, trusting him to make the right choice. He thought about Catherine, who had trusted him with her life once already. You're right, Marcus said slowly. I have no allies, no resources, no leverage. I'm glad you understand. But you're wrong about one thing. What's that? Marcus looked Victor directly in the eyes. I'm not alone. I have a daughter who believes I can beat any enemy, a mother who raised me to never give up, and a woman I saved from a fire who trusted me when she had no reason to trust anyone. Touching, but irrelevant. Maybe, or maybe it's the only thing that matters. Marcus settled back in his seat. Do what you want, Mr. Ashworth. Threaten my family, destroy my career, make me disappear. But you need to understand something. What's that? You can't scare a man who's already lost everything. I've been bankrupt, divorced, watched my daughter suffer while I couldn't afford her medication. There's nothing you can do to me that life hasn't already done. Marcus leaned forward. But there's plenty I can do to you. Because I'm not fighting for money or power or position. I'm fighting for the people I love. And that makes me more dangerous than anyone you've ever faced. Victor's smile faltered. Get out of my car. Gladly. They released him in the parking garage. As Marcus walked toward the elevator, Victor's voice followed him. This isn't over, Mr. Webb. No, Marcus replied without turning around. "It's just beginning." He walked into the building, past the security desk, into the elevator that would take him to Catherine's office. His hands were shaking. His heart pounded against his ribs. But when he looked at his reflection in the elevator doors, he saw what Sophie saw: a man who never gave up. A man worth believing in. The elevator doors opened, and Marcus Webb went to war. Catherine was waiting when Marcus burst into her office. "What happened?" "Security said Victor's men took you to the parking garage. He tried to buy me off. Then he tried to scare me off." Marcus closed the door behind him. "Neither worked." "What did he say?" "He knows about Detective Reyes. He knows about the files I've been collecting. He had someone inside your IT department feeding him information. They erased the server room footage before I could copy it." Catherine's face went pale. "The footage of his car?" "Gone, along with the flash drive I was using to store evidence." Marcus paced the office, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. "He threatened Sophie. Threatened my mother. Said he'd make me disappear the same way he made David Chen disappear." "Marcus, maybe you should—" "Don't." He turned to face her. "Don't tell me to walk away. Don't tell me it's too dangerous. Victor just showed me exactly what he is: a man who kills people who get in his way and sleeps fine at night. I'm not letting him win. I was going to say maybe you should stay at my place tonight. He knows where your apartment is." Marcus stopped pacing. "Your place. Guest room. Separate entrance. Security system that I installed myself after the fire, not connected to any company network." Catherine's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "I'm not letting him get to you the way he got to David." "Catherine, don't argue. It's not a request." For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Two people caught in a storm. Neither of them had chosen holding on to each other because there was nothing else to hold on to. "Okay," Marcus said finally. "But tomorrow we go on offense. No more waiting for him to make moves. We take the fight to him." "How?" "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out." That night in Catherine's guest room, Marcus couldn't sleep. He called Sophie at 10 p.m. past her bedtime, but his mother understood. "Daddy." Sophie's voice was sleepy but happy. "Grandma said I could stay up because you needed to talk to me." "I just wanted to hear your voice, baby girl." "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing's wrong. I just miss you." "I miss you too. But Grandma says missing people means you love them, and love is the strongest thing in the world." Sophie yawned. "Daddy, are you fighting bad guys?" Marcus closed his eyes. "What makes you ask that?" "Because you sound scared. You never sound scared unless something important is happening." 7 years old, and she could read him better than anyone. "I'm not scared, baby." "It's okay to be scared. You told me that, remember? You said being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared." "When did you get so smart?" "I was born smart. Grandma says it's genetic." Marcus laughed despite everything. "I love you, Sophie." "I love you too, Daddy. Beat the bad guys and come home." "I will. I promise." To the moon and the stars. And all the way back. After Sophie hung up, Marcus lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. Victor Ashworth had money power connections. He had people inside the company feeding him information. He had security firms willing to kill on command. Marcus had nothing. A detective who was being warned off, a CEO who was fighting for her corporate life, a daughter who believed he could do anything. But Sophie was right about one thing. Being brave meant doing the right thing even when you were scared. And Marcus Webb had never been more scared in his life. Day 4 of week 2 brought the first crack in Victor's armor. Detective Reyes called at 6 a.m., her voice tight with excitement. "I traced the payment to Apex Solutions. They're good at covering their tracks, but they made a mistake. They used a bank in the Caymans that's currently under investigation by the FBI for money laundering. Can you get the records?" "Already have them. A friend at the bureau owed me a favor." Reyes paused. Marcus, the payment came directly from Victor Ashworth's personal account. Not a shell company. Not a trust. Him. Marcus sat up straight. He made a mistake. A big one. Either he was in a hurry or he got sloppy. Either way, I have a direct financial link between Victor Ashworth and the people who set that fire. Is it enough for an arrest? It's enough for a warrant. I'm presenting it to a judge this afternoon. But Marcus Victor has lawyers, good ones. The moment he hears about this, he'll start destroying evidence and calling in favors. We need more. What kind of more? Someone who can testify. Someone who saw something, heard. Something, knows something that connects Victor to the fire directly. David Chen is dead. Anyone else who knew anything is probably too scared to talk. Then find someone who's more scared of going to prison than they are of Victor Ashworth. After the call, Marcus found Catherine in her home office, already working. Reyes has a direct link between Victor and Apex Solutions. Money from his personal account. Catherine looked up sharply. That's huge. It's not enough. We need a witness. Someone who can testify about Victor's involvement. Everyone who knows anything is either dead or bought off. Not everyone. Marcus sat across from her. The night of the fire you said something to me. Before you passed out. You said not an accident and someone deliberately. How did you know? Catherine was quiet for a moment. I didn't know. Not for certain. But that night before the fire started, I received a phone call. Blocked number. A man's voice saying, "Last chance to resign." You never told me this. I didn't think it mattered. Anonymous threat, untraceable call. But you knew it wasn't random. You knew someone specific was coming after you. I suspected. Catherine stood, moving to the window. The call came at 3 a.m. I was awake because I'd been reviewing the financial records, the same ones I showed you. 2 hours later, the fire started. Whoever made that call knew you were in that room. Someone had been tracking my movements. Reyes confirmed that they found surveillance software on my phone, my computer, even my car's GPS. Catherine turned to face him. Victor knew exactly where I would be and when. He knew I was getting close to the truth, and he decided to solve the problem permanently. The call might be traceable. Even blocked numbers leave records somewhere. I saved the voicemail. I was going to take it to the police, but then the fire happened. And I spent 2 days in the hospital, and after that I didn't know who to trust. Can I hear it? Catherine pulled out her phone, scrolled through saved messages, pressed play. A man's voice filled the room, cold, professional, without emotion. Miss Blackwell, you've been asking questions that have attracted attention. This is your last chance to resign from Meridian Technologies and walk away. If you don't, what happens next won't be an accident. It will be a consequence. The message ended. Marcus replayed it 3 times, listening carefully. I know that voice. You do. Not personally, but I've heard it before. Marcus closed his eyes, trying to place the memory. The parking garage. When Victor's men took me. The lead guard, the one who did all the talking, he had an accent. Slight, almost unnoticeable, but there. An accent? Eastern European, Russian maybe, or Ukrainian. Marcus opened his eyes. The voice on this message has the same accent. You think Victor's security guard made the call? I think Victor hired professionals from Apex Solutions to handle his dirty work, and one of them was stupid enough to use his real voice on a threatening phone call. Marcus stood. Can you send me this recording? I need Reyes to hear it. Marcus, even if we can identify the voice, how does that help? The guard isn't going to testify against Victor. No. But if we can prove that Victor's personal security team made threatening calls before an attempted murder, that's conspiracy. It means Victor didn't just pay someone to start a fire, he coordinated the entire operation. That's still circumstantial. It's a thread, and threads lead to fabric. Marcus took her hand. We're going to bring him down, Catherine. I don't know how yet, but we're going to find a way. She didn't pull her hand back. Why are you doing this? Really? It's not just about Sophie's insurance anymore. No, it's not. Marcus met her eyes. Victor Ashworth kills people who get in his way. He's been doing it for years, and no one has stopped him. David Chen had a daughter. The people who died in buildings he cut corners on, they had families. And if no one stands up to him, he'll keep doing it forever. That's very noble. But noble people tend to end up dead. Maybe. But my daughter believes I can beat any enemy. And I'd rather die trying to be the man she thinks I am than live knowing I ran away when it mattered. Catherine squeezed his hand. Then let's find a way to keep you alive long enough to see her again. Day 5 brought chaos. Victor Ashworth called an emergency board meeting citing concerns about corporate governance and leadership stability. He's making his move, Catherine said, reading the notification on her phone. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Full board attendance required. Can he force you out? If he has enough votes, and he's been building alliances for months. Catherine's jaw tightened. He'll present me as unstable paranoid about fires and conspiracies, hiring unqualified outsiders, making accusations without evidence. The board will vote no confidence, appoint him interim CEO, and bury everything. Then we stop him. How we have circumstantial evidence and a voicemail with an accent. That's not enough to convince a corporate board that their chairman is a murderer. Marcus's phone rang. Reyes. Tell me you have something. Better than something. Reyes's voice was electric. The guard from Victor's security detail, the one with the accent, his name is Dmitry Volkov. Former FSB discharged for excessive use of force, immigrated to the U.S. 8 years ago. He's been working for Apex Solutions since 2019. Can you arrest him? Already in custody. We picked him up an hour ago on an unrelated weapons charge, but when we brought up the Meridian fire, he started talking. Talking about what? About how Victor Ashworth personally briefed him on the operation. About how the payment was supposed to go through a shell company, but Victor was in a hurry and used his personal account. About how David Chen was killed when he threatened to go to the police. Reyes paused. Marcus Volkov is willing to testify. He wants a deal-reduced sentence in exchange for everything he knows. When? His lawyer is working on the agreement now. But Marcus Victor has people everywhere. The moment he finds out Volkov is cooperating, he'll run, or worse. How long do we have? 24 hours. Maybe less. Marcus hung up and turned to Catherine. We have a witness. Dmitry Volkov, one of Victor's security people. He's cooperating with the police. Catherine's eyes widened. That changes everything. It changes nothing if Victor finds out and disappears. We need to move fast. The board meeting is tomorrow at 2 p.m. Then we make it count. Marcus started pacing, thinking out loud. Victor expects to walk into that meeting and take over the company. Instead, we walk in with evidence of his crimes, the financial records, the payment to Apex, and a recorded confession from his own hired killer. The board will never accept it. They'll say it's fabricated, that I'm desperate. Not if the police are there to arrest him. Marcus grabbed his phone. Reyes, can you get a warrant before 2 p.m. tomorrow? I can try. But Marcus judges don't like to rush. And Victor has friends in the court system. Then find a judge who isn't his friend. Call in every favor you have. We have one shot at this. I'll make it happen. The next 18 hours were a blur of preparation and paranoia. Marcus and Catherine worked through the night organizing evidence, preparing presentations, coordinating with Reyes. Neither of them slept. Neither of them ate. At 3 a.m., Marcus called Sophie. Daddy. Her voice was foggy with sleep. Is it morning? Not yet, baby girl. I just wanted to tell you something. What? Tomorrow is a really important day. I might not be able to call for a while after. But I want you to know that everything I'm doing is for you. For us. For our family. Are you fighting the bad guys? Yes. Are you going to win? I'm going to try my hardest. Then you'll win. Sophie's confidence was absolute. You always try your hardest and you never give up. That's what makes you a hero. I'm not a hero, baby. Yes, you are. My hero. A pause. Daddy? Yeah? When you beat the bad guys, can we get ice cream? Grandma says winners get ice cream. Despite everything, Marcus smiled. All the ice cream you want. Promise? Promise. At 6 a.m., Reyes called with good news. Got the warrant. Judge Morrison, she's new, hasn't had time to be corrupted yet. Arrest warrant for Victor Ashworth on charges of conspiracy to commit murder, arson, and financial fraud. When can you serve it? Whenever you're ready. I've got a team standing by. The board meeting is at 2 p.m. Can you be there at 2:30? Why wait? Because I want him to think he's won. I want him to stand in front of that board and make his accusations and believe he's about to take everything. And then I want to watch his face when it all falls apart. Reyes was quiet for a moment. That's cold, Marcus. He killed David Chen. He tried to kill Catherine. He's been threatening my daughter. Marcus's voice hardened. He deserves cold. 2:30 it is. The board meeting convened at 2 p.m. exactly. 12 people around a polished conference table. Victor Ashworth at the head, looking smug and confident. Catherine at the other end looking tired but determined. Marcus standing against the wall, observing. Thank you all for coming on short notice, Victor began. I know you're wondering why I called this meeting. The truth is I have serious concerns about the direction of this company, and specifically about the leadership of our CEO. He clicked a remote. A presentation appeared on the screen. In the past 3 weeks, Miss Blackwell has hired an unqualified individual to a senior position created without board approval. She has made serious accusations against respected members of this company without evidence. She has been meeting secretly with police investigators, potentially exposing Meridian to legal liability. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Some avoided Catherine's eyes. Furthermore, Victor continued, I have reason to believe that Miss Blackwell's judgment has been compromised by the trauma of her recent experience. While I have the utmost sympathy for what she went through, we cannot allow personal difficulties to jeopardize the company's future. What exactly are you proposing, Victor? One board member asked. A vote of no confidence. Miss Blackwell would step down as CEO immediately, and I would assume the role on an interim basis until a suitable replacement can be found. This is absurd. Catherine stood. Victor is using this meeting to distract from his own crimes. He's the one who should be investigated, not me. And here we see the paranoia I mentioned. Victor shook his head sadly. Catherine, I understand you're struggling, but accusing your board chairman of crimes without evidence, I have evidence. The room went quiet. Catherine nodded to Marcus, who stepped forward with a tablet. 3 months ago, I discovered financial irregularities in our Asian division. Payments to vendors that didn't exist. Contracts with inflated costs. She clicked to the next slide. The money was being funneled to shell companies in Singapore and the Cayman Islands companies controlled by Victor Ashworth. This is defamation, Victor said sharply. I'll have your job for this. You've been trying to take my job for months. That's why you arranged the fire at the Grandview Hotel. Chaos erupted. Board members shouted questions. Victor demanded the meeting be adjourned. Marcus stepped to the front of the room. 5 days ago, I was taken to the parking garage by Victor's private security team. Their leader, a man named Dmitry Volkov, threatened my family and told me to resign. This morning, Mr. Volkov was arrested by Chicago police. He's currently cooperating with investigators. Victor's face went pale. This is ridiculous. I've never heard of anyone named Volkov. He's heard of you. Marcus clicked to an audio file. This is a recording of a call Mr. Volkov made to Miss Blackwell the night before the fire. Listen to the voice. He pressed play. Miss Blackwell, you've been asking questions that have attracted attention. This is your last chance to resign from Meridian Technologies and walk away. If you don't, what happens next won't be an accident. It will be a consequence. That could be anyone, Victor protested. Anyone can. Mr. Volkov has identified that recording as his own voice. He's also confirmed that you personally briefed him on the operation to kill Miss Blackwell. He's lying. He's cooperating with police in exchange for a reduced sentence. He has no reason to lie. The conference room door opened. Detective Reyes walked in, flanked by 4 uniformed officers. Victor Ashworth. Her voice was steady and official. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, arson, and financial fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Victor stood frozen. His face cycled through emotions: shock, rage, fear, and finally something that looked almost like respect. Well played, Miss Blackwell. I underestimated you. You underestimated all of us. Catherine's voice was ice, including the man you tried to scare away. Victor's eyes found Marcus. You're just a nobody, a failed operations manager, a single father who can't afford his daughter's medicine. Maybe. Marcus stepped closer. But I'm also the man who carried your target down 7 floors of a burning building. The man you threatened, intimidated, and tried to destroy. And I'm still standing. He leaned in, voice dropping so only Victor could hear. My daughter told me that being brave means doing the right thing even when you're scared. I was terrified every day of this fight, but I did it anyway for Sophie, for Catherine, for David Chen's daughter, who will never see her father again. Marcus straightened. You spent your life burning down other people's lives. Now it's your turn to watch everything you built collapse into ashes. Reyes stepped forward with handcuffs. Victor didn't resist. As he was led out, the board sat in stunned silence. 12 people who had almost voted to remove Catherine and hand the company to a murderer. Catherine stood at the head of the table, calm and controlled. I believe we have a vote to conclude, all in favor of removing me as CEO. Not a single hand rose. Motion fails. This meeting is adjourned. She walked out of the conference room without looking back, Marcus falling into step beside her. They didn't speak until they reached her office. Then Catherine closed the door, leaned against it, and exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. We did it. You did it. I just helped. You saved my life. Twice. She looked at him, eyes bright with something that might have been tears. The fire. And then today. Today was teamwork. Teamwork. She laughed softly. Is that what we're calling it? Marcus moved closer. What would you call it? I don't know yet. Something I wasn't expecting. Something I'm not sure I deserve. You deserve everything, Catherine. You fought for this company, for the truth, for people you'd never met. That takes courage. So does running into burning buildings for strangers. They stood close now, close enough to feel each other's breath. When this started, Marcus said quietly, I was desperate. I needed a job to save my daughter's life. I would have taken anything. And now I have a job I believe in, a boss I respect, and something else I didn't expect to find. What's that? Someone worth fighting for. Catherine reached up, touched his face. This is complicated. You work for me. There are rules about... I've never been good at following rules. I noticed. She kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, 2 people who had been through hell together, not quite sure if they were ready for something new. Then it deepened, became something more urgent, more real. When they finally pulled apart, Catherine was smiling. That was probably a bad idea. Probably. We should talk about it, set boundaries, be professional. We should. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. Marcus agreed. That night, he video-called Sophie. Her face filled the screen, vibrant with excitement. Daddy, Grandma says you won. She says the bad guys got caught. They did, baby girl. The police took them away. I knew it. I knew you would win. Sophie bounced on the bed. Does this mean you can come home? Soon, baby. I have some things to finish here first, but soon. How soon? A couple weeks, maybe less. Sophie's face fell slightly. That's a long time. I know, but when I come back, we're going to have a big celebration. Ice cream sandcastles, everything we talked about. Promise. Promise. His mother appeared on screen, her face lined with relief and exhaustion. Marcus, I saw the news. They arrested him, the chairman. They're saying he tried to kill your boss. He tried to do a lot of things, Mom. He didn't succeed. Because of you. Grace's voice cracked. I'm so proud of you, son. Your father would be proud too. Marcus felt tears threaten. His father dead, when Marcus was 12, killed by a drunk driver, never getting to see the man his son became. Thanks, Mom. Come home soon. We miss you. I will. I promise. After the call ended, Marcus sat in the dark, thinking about everything that had happened. 3 weeks ago, he had been a desperate man running into fire because he couldn't run away from trouble. Now he was something else, something stronger, something his daughter could believe in. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Victor had lawyers, allies, people who would fight to minimize his crimes. The investigation would take months, the trial would take longer. But tonight Marcus allowed himself to feel something he hadn't felt in 2 years. Hope, real hope. The kind that comes from knowing you stood up when it mattered, fought, when it counted, and won. Not because he was special, not because he was lucky, because he refused to give up, because that's what fathers do. The weeks following Victor Ashworth's arrest moved like a fever dream. News cameras swarmed Meridian Technologies for days. Reporters shouted questions at anyone entering or leaving the building. Shareholders demanded answers. Board members issued statements distancing themselves from their former chairman. Marcus stayed out of the spotlight as much as possible. Catherine handled the press, the board, the chaos, but she kept him close, a steady presence in a world that had suddenly become very unstable. You should do an interview, she told him one morning, 3 days after the arrest. The media wants to know who you are. The man who saved the CEO and brought down a criminal empire. I'm not interested in being famous. Fame isn't the point. Credibility is. The board still has doubts about me. If they see you a regular guy, a father, someone who did the right thing because it was right, it strengthens our position. Our position. Catherine caught herself. The company's position. That's not what you said. She looked away, but not before Marcus caught the flush creeping up her neck. They hadn't talked about the kiss. There had been too much happening, too many fires to put out metaphorical, this time too little space for personal conversations. Catherine. Don't. She held up a hand. Not yet. I can't think about that while everything else is falling apart. Is it falling apart? Victor had allies on the board. 2 of them resigned this morning. 3 more are threatening to sell their shares. And our stock price dropped 15% after the arrest. Nobody wants to invest in a company whose chairman tried to murder the CEO. Give it time. The truth always helps eventually. Does it? Catherine finally met his eyes. In my experience, the truth is just another weapon people use against each other. That's a dark way to look at things. I've had dark experiences. Marcus stepped closer. So have I. Lost my job, my wife, almost lost my daughter. But I'm still here, still fighting, still believing that good people can win. You really believe that? I have to, for Sophie. He paused. And for you. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took his hand. One thing at a time. Stabilize the company. Get through the investigation. And then we figure out the rest. Deal. They shook on it, but neither of them let go right away. Sophie's cardiologist called on day 5. Marcus was in a meeting when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, saw the number, and felt his blood turn to ice. I have to take this, he told the room. Catherine nodded, concern flickering across her face. Marcus stepped into the hallway, pressed the phone to his ear. "Dr. Patterson, what's wrong?" "Mr. Webb, I've been reviewing Sophie's latest test results. There's been some progression in her condition." "Progression?" "Her heart valve is deteriorating faster than we anticipated. The medication is helping, but it's not enough. She's going to need surgery." Marcus leaned against the wall, suddenly unable to support his own weight. "When?" "Within the next 3 to 4 months. Any longer than that, and we risk permanent damage." "How much?" "The surgery itself will run about $45,000 plus hospital stay, rehabilitation, follow-up care. With good insurance, most of that would be covered." "I have insurance now, full benefits." "That's excellent news. I'll have my office coordinate with your provider." Dr. Patterson paused. "Mr. Webb, I want to be clear about something. Sophie's condition is serious, but it's treatable. Children undergo this procedure every day with excellent outcomes. She's young and otherwise healthy. There's every reason to be optimistic. But she needs to be here in Chicago, where I can monitor her closely before the surgery. Flying back and forth between Detroit isn't sustainable." "I understand. Can you arrange for her to relocate?" Marcus thought about his mother, her job at the diner, her life in Detroit. He thought about Sophie, who had never lived anywhere else, who counted the days until she could see her daddy again. "I'll make it happen." After the call, Marcus stood in the hallway for a long time, processing. Surgery, $45,000, 3 to 4 months. A year ago, those numbers would have been a death sentence. He would have had no way to pay, no insurance, no options, except watching his daughter's heart slowly fail. Now he had a job, benefits, a salary that could cover emergencies. Victor Ashworth had tried to take all of that away, had threatened Sophie, specifically knowing she was Marcus's weakness. The thought made rage flare in his chest, hot, bright, and dangerous. But rage wouldn't help Sophie. Action would. He called his mother. "Marcus, is everything okay?" "Sophie's doctor called. She needs surgery within 3 or 4 months." Silence. Then a shaky breath. "I knew this was coming. I just hoped—" "I know, Mom. But listen, my insurance will cover most of it. And the doctor wants Sophie here in Chicago, so he can monitor her. I need you both to come." "To Chicago?" "I've found an apartment. 3 bedrooms near a good school close to the hospital. It's not fancy, but it's safe and it's close." "Marcus, I have a job here. I can't just—" "Mom." He kept his voice gentle. "Sophie needs you. And I need you. Please." Another long silence. Then, "How soon?" "As soon as you can pack. We'll be there in a week." "Thank you, Mom." "You don't have to thank me, Marcus. You're my son. She's my granddaughter. There's nothing I wouldn't do for either of you." He hung up and stood there, phone in hand, trying to absorb everything. Sophie was coming. His mother was coming. His family would be together again in a city where he had a future instead of just survival. And in 3 or 4 months, his daughter would undergo surgery that could save her life or end it. One thing at a time. He walked back into the meeting. Catherine looked up, question in her eyes. He nodded slightly later, and she returned her attention to the discussion. But her hand brushed his under the table just briefly, enough to remind him he wasn't alone. The investigation into Victor Ashworth expanded rapidly. Detective Reyes called Marcus daily with updates. Dmitry Volkov was singing like a canary, naming names, providing dates, documenting crimes that went back years. Victor had been embezzling from companies for over a decade. He had arranged accidents for at least 4 other people who got in his way. David Chen was just the most recent victim in a long pattern of violence. "The federal prosecutor wants to meet with you," Reyes said on day 8. "You're a key witness, the threats Victor made in the parking garage, the kidnapping attempt. Your testimony could be the difference between 20 years and life." "When?" Tomorrow afternoon. I can pick you up if that's easier. I'll be there. The meeting with the federal prosecutor was intense. Her name was Alexandra Chen, no relation to David, and she had the sharp eyes and sharper tongue of someone who had spent 20 years putting away powerful criminals. Mr. Webb, I've reviewed your statement. I want to make sure I understand the sequence of events. Go ahead. On day 3 of your employment at Meridian Technologies, you were taken by force to a parking garage by 3 men employed by Victor Ashworth. In that garage, Victor made explicit threats against your daughter's life and demanded that you resign and leave Chicago. Is that accurate? Yes. And what was your response? I told him I wasn't afraid of him. Were you? Marcus considered the question. Yes, but not enough to walk away. Alexandra made a note. On day 12, you and Miss Blackwell presented evidence of Victor's crimes at a board meeting leading to his immediate arrest. During that meeting, Victor made additional threatening statements. What exactly did he say? He called me a nobody, a failed operations manager, a single father who couldn't afford his daughter's medicine. How did that make you feel? It made me glad I'd beaten him. Alexandra looked up from her notes. Mr. Webb, juries respond to emotion. When you testify, I need you to help them understand what it felt like to be threatened by a man like Victor Ashworth. The fear, the desperation, the determination to protect your family. I can do that. Can you? Because right now you're talking like a soldier giving a debrief. I need a father who is terrified for his daughter's life. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned forward. When Victor mentioned Sophie, I wanted to kill him. Not metaphorically, literally. I wanted to wrap my hands around his throat and squeeze until he stopped breathing. Why didn't you? Because Sophie needs me alive. Because killing him would have made me exactly what he accused me of being: desperate, out of control, dangerous. Marcus's voice dropped. And because I realized that the best revenge wasn't violence. It was surviving. It was building a life he couldn't touch. It was watching him lose everything while I gained everything. Alexandra smiled. That's what I need on the stand. When's the trial? 6 months, maybe longer. Victor's lawyers are already filing motions challenging evidence, doing everything they can to delay. But the case is solid. With your testimony, Volkov's cooperation, and the financial records, he's going away for a long time. How long? If we get convictions on all counts, life, no parole. Marcus absorbed this. Victor Ashworth, powerful, connected, untouchable, would spend the rest of his existence in a federal prison cell. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough for David Chen's daughter, for the families of Victor's other victims, for the years of fear and suffering he had caused. But it was justice. And sometimes justice was all you could ask for. Sophie and Grace arrived on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Marcus picked them up at O'Hare, standing at the arrivals gate with flowers he'd bought from an airport vendor, overpriced and slightly wilted, but the only option available. He saw Sophie before she saw him. She was walking beside Grace, dragging a small pink suitcase, looking around with wide eyes at the crowds and noise and chaos. Sophie! Her head snapped toward his voice. Her face split into a grin that could have powered the entire city. Daddy! She dropped her suitcase and ran. Marcus caught her mid-leap, lifting her into his arms, burying his face in her hair that smelled like strawberry shampoo and airplane. Hi, baby girl. I missed you so much. I missed you too. More than you know. Sophie pulled back to look at him, small hands framing his face. You look different. Different how? Happier. She studied him seriously. Are you happy, Daddy? I am now. Grace reached them, moving slower, looking tired, but relieved. Marcus pulled her into a one-armed hug while still holding Sophie. Welcome to Chicago, Mom. It's very big. You'll get used to it. Will I? But she was smiling. Show us this apartment you keep bragging about. The apartment wasn't much a walk-up, in a decent neighborhood, close to public transit and schools and hospitals. But Marcus had spent days preparing it. Sophie's room was painted purple, her favorite color. Grace's room had new curtains and a rocking chair Marcus had found at a thrift store. Sophie bounced through the space, touching everything claiming territory. This is my room, and this is my closet, and this is Daddy. Is this a window? It's a window, baby. But I can see the city. Marcus laughed. That's the idea. Grace stood in the kitchen, running her hand along the counters. You did good, son. This feels like a home. It will be, once you're both here. We're here now. I know. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I know. That night, after Sophie was asleep and Grace had retreated to her room, Marcus sat in the dark living room thinking. His family was here, safe, together. In a few months, Sophie would have surgery that would fix her heart, literally and permanently. He had a job he believed in, a boss who had become something more, and a future that finally looked like it might contain happiness. 3 weeks ago, he had been a desperate man running into fire. Now, he was home. Catherine met Sophie 2 days later. I want you to meet someone. Marcus had told his daughter that morning. Someone important. Important like a president. More important than that, she's a friend. Sophie's eyes narrowed with 7-year-old suspicion. A friend, or a girlfriend? I don't know yet. We're figuring it out. Grown-ups are weird. Extremely weird. They met at a coffee shop, neutral territory, low pressure. Catherine was already there when they arrived, sitting at a corner table with 3 drinks, coffee for herself, hot chocolate for Sophie, tea for Marcus. You remembered I don't drink coffee, Marcus said. I remember everything. Catherine stood as they approached. And you must be Sophie. Sophie looked at her with unblinking intensity. You're the lady my daddy saved from the fire. I am. He says you're his friend. I'd like to think so. Then how come you look scared? Catherine blinked. I'm sorry. Your hands are shaking, and you keep touching your hair. Daddy says people do that when they're nervous. Sophie tilted her head. Are you nervous because of me? Marcus started to intervene, but Catherine held up a hand. Yes, she said honestly. I'm very nervous. Why? Because your daddy talks about you all the time. He says you're the smartest, bravest, most wonderful person he knows. And I really want you to like me. Sophie considered this. Daddy talks about me. Every single day. What does he say? He says you draw pictures that make him cry. He says you always know when he's sad, even when he pretends he's not. He says you believe in him when nobody else does. Catherine knelt to Sophie's level. He says you're the reason he never gives up. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Then, do you make him happy? I try to. Does he make you happy? Yes, very much. Sophie reached out and took Catherine's hand. Okay then. You can be his girlfriend. Just like that. Just like that. Sophie tugged her toward the table. Now can we have hot chocolate? I can see the whipped cream from here. The afternoon was chaos in the best way. Sophie asked Catherine approximately 400 questions about her job, her favorite color, her opinion on space travel and dinosaurs, and whether pizza counted as breakfast food. Catherine answered every question seriously, never talking down to Sophie, never pretending to be something she wasn't. When Sophie excused herself to the bathroom, Marcus leaned across the table. You're good with her. She's easy to be good with. She's exactly like you, smart, direct, completely incapable of pretending. Is that a compliment? The highest one I know how to give. Sophie returned, sliding into the booth beside Catherine instead of Marcus. Daddy, I've decided something. What's that? Catherine's coming to my surgery. She can hold your hand when you're scared. Marcus's heart clenched. Sophie, we haven't even set a date for... Dr. Patterson called Grandma yesterday, March 15th. Sophie looked between them. I wasn't supposed to hear, but I did. And I know you're scared, Daddy. You're always scared when something happens to me. Sophie? It's okay to be scared. You told me that. Sophie reached across the table and took his hand. But you don't have to be scared alone anymore. That's what family is for. And Catherine is family now. Marcus looked at Catherine, who looked just as overwhelmed as he felt. Is she? He asked. Family. Catherine met his eyes. Something shifted in her expression from careful professional distance to something warmer, more vulnerable. I'd like to be, she said softly, if you'll have me. Sophie bounced in her seat. That means yes, Daddy. She said yes. I heard, baby girl. Does this mean I can call her Mom? Or is that weird? What do girlfriend friends get called? I think, Catherine said laughing, we should start with Catherine and see where things go. Okay. Catherine. Sophie tested the name. That's pretty. Like a princess. I'm not much of a princess. That's okay. Princesses are boring anyway. They just wait in towers for people to save them. Sophie grinned. Daddy says you're more like a queen. Queens save themselves. Catherine looked at Marcus, eyebrow raised. A queen. I might have mentioned it once. Once. Maybe twice. Sophie grabbed her hot chocolate, slurping loudly. Grown-ups are so weird. The weeks before Sophie's surgery were the longest of Marcus's life. He handled the ongoing investigation, testified before grand juries, coordinated with prosecutors. But every moment he wasn't actively required elsewhere he spent with Sophie. They built sandcastles on the Lake Michigan shore just like he'd promised. They visited the Shed Aquarium 3 times because Sophie fell in love with the beluga whales. They ate ice cream until they were sick, then ate more. Catherine joined them when she could. Weekends, mostly, sometimes evenings when the corporate chaos allowed. She's doing well, Catherine observed one night watching Sophie sleep after a particularly energetic day at the zoo. Better than I expected considering. Kids are resilient. So are their fathers. Marcus looked at her. I'm not resilient. I'm terrified. You don't show it. Neither do you. But I know you're scared too about the trial, about the company, about all of it. I'm scared about Sophie, Catherine admitted. More than anything else. If something happened to her, nothing's going to happen. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise that whatever happens, we face it together. That's what family does. Catherine leaned into him, and he put his arm around her. I've never had this before, she said quietly. Had what? People. Family. Someone who actually wants me around, not for what I can do for them or what I represent, but just for me. Well, you have it now. Do I? Marcus kissed the top of her head. You saved my life too, you know. That day in your office when you offered me the job. I was drowning and you threw me a rope. I hired you because you were qualified. You hired me because you trusted me, because something about a man who ran into fire made you believe I was worth taking a chance on. That's very romantic. I'm a very romantic guy. Just ask Sophie, she'll tell you about all the poems I write. You write poems? No, but she thinks I should start. Catherine laughed. Your daughter has very strong opinions. She gets it from her grandmother. They sat in comfortable silence watching Sophie sleep, thinking about everything that had brought them to this moment, and everything that lay ahead. March 14th came faster than anyone was ready for. The night before Sophie's surgery, Marcus sat beside her bed holding her hand while she pretended to sleep. I know you're awake, baby girl. Sophie opened one eye. How do you always know? Your breathing changes when you fake it. That's creepy, Daddy. That's parenting. Sophie turned to face him, both eyes open now. Are you scared? Yes. Me too. She squeezed his hand. But Dr. Patterson says I'll be asleep the whole time, and when I wake up, my heart will work better. That's right. And you'll be there when I wake up. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. What about regular horses? Them either. What about elephants? Sophie. She giggled, but it faded quickly. Daddy, if something goes wrong? Nothing's going to go wrong. But if it does, I want you to know something. Marcus felt his throat close. What? You're the best daddy in the whole world. Not because you buy me stuff or take me places. Because you never give up on me. Even when Mommy left and you were sad, you never stopped trying to make things better. Sophie's eyes were too old, too wise for 7 years. That's why I believe in you. Because you believe in me. Marcus couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything except pull his daughter into his arms and hold her like he would never let go. I love you, Sophie. More than anything. I love you too, Daddy. To the moon and the stars. And all the way back. He held her until she fell asleep, really asleep this time, breathing slow and steady against his chest. Then he sat in the dark, watching her breathe, counting the hours until morning. March 15th, surgery day. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and fear. Marcus paced the waiting room while Grace sat in a corner chair, hands clasped, lips moving in silent prayer. Catherine arrived at 6 a.m. with coffee and pastries nobody could eat. Any word? She asked. They took her back an hour ago. Doctor said it would be 4 to 6 hours. Then we wait. They waited. Grace told stories about Marcus as a child. His first steps, his first words, the time he tried to build a rocket ship out of cardboard boxes and nearly burned down the garage. Catherine shared memories of her own childhood, strict parents, high expectations, the loneliness of being the smartest kid in every room. Marcus listened, adding details, laughing at moments, trying to distract himself from the clock on the wall that moved impossibly slow. 2 hours, 3, 4. The door opened. Dr. Patterson walked out, surgical cap still on, mask hanging around his neck. Everyone stood. Mr. Webb, how is she? Sophie did beautifully. The valve repair was successful. She's in recovery now, groggy but awake. She's asking for you. Marcus felt his knees buckle. Catherine caught his arm, steadied him. Can I see her? One at a time. Follow me. The recovery room was small and white and filled with beeping machines. Sophie lay in a bed too big for her small body, tubes and wires everywhere, eyes half open. Daddy! Marcus rushed to her side, taking her hand. I'm here, baby girl. I'm right here. Did they fix my heart? They fixed it. You're going to be okay. That's good. Sophie's eyes drifted closed, then open again. Daddy. Yeah. You stayed. I told you I would. I know. She smiled weakly. But sometimes people say things and don't mean them. You always mean them. Always, baby, always. Sophie's eyes closed. Her breathing steadied. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm, strong and sure. Marcus sat beside her bed, holding her hand. Crying tears he hadn't known he was holding. His daughter was going to be okay. His daughter was going to live. Everything else, the trial, the company, the future, could wait. Right now, this was enough. This was everything. Sophie squeezed his hand in her sleep, and Marcus Webb, desperate man turned hero, single father turned survivor, finally let himself believe that happy endings weren't just for fairy tales. They were for people who never gave up. They were for fathers who ran into fire. They were for him. Sophie's recovery took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of hospital visits, physical therapy, medication, adjustments. 6 weeks of watching his daughter slowly return to herself. First, the tired smiles, then the questions. Then the unstoppable energy that no surgery could diminish. Marcus was there for every moment. Every needle, every test, Every frustrating session with therapists who pushed Sophie harder than she wanted to be pushed. "I hate this," Sophie announced on week 3, arms crossed, refusing to walk another lap around the rehabilitation ward. "I know, baby. My legs hurt and my chest hurts and I want to go home. Soon. You always say soon. Soon isn't a real time." Marcus knelt beside her wheelchair. "You're right. Soon isn't a real time. But you know what is. 2 more weeks. That's what Dr. Patterson said. 2 more weeks of hard work, and then you can sleep in your own bed, in your own room, with all your stuffed animals. And Mr. Bear. Especially Mr. Bear." Sophie considered this. 2 weeks is 14 days. That's right. 14 days is a lot of walking. A lot of walking, Marcus agreed. "But then I'm done." "Then you're done. Your heart will be strong and healthy, and you can run and play and do everything other kids do." Sophie looked down at her hands, small and pale against the hospital blanket. "Daddy, do you think I'll ever be normal?" The question hit Marcus like a punch. "What do you mean?" "Other kids don't have scars on their chest. Other kids don't have to take medicine every day. Other kids don't miss school because their hearts don't work right." Sophie's voice was small but steady. "Sometimes I feel like I'm broken." Marcus lifted her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Listen to me, Sophie Marie Webb. You are not broken. You are the strongest person I know. Do you understand that? But no buts. You've been through more in 7 years than most people face in a lifetime. And you're still here, still fighting, still making terrible jokes that only Grandma laughs at. Grandma laughs at everything." "Exactly. Because she knows what matters." Marcus touched the center of her chest gently. "This scar? It's not a weakness. It's proof that you survived something that would have defeated most people. It's proof that you're a warrior." "A warrior. The bravest warrior I've ever met." Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she uncrossed her arms. "Fine, I'll do the stupid walking. That's my girl. But you have to walk with me. Deal. And you have to make airplane sounds." "Sophie." "Those are my terms, Daddy." Marcus sighed, but he was smiling. "Airplane sounds it is." They walked the rehabilitation ward together, Marcus making quiet whooshing sounds while Sophie giggled, and the nurses tried not to laugh. It wasn't dignified. It wasn't professional. But it was exactly what Sophie needed. And that Marcus had learned was all that mattered. Victor Ashworth's trial began in May. The federal courthouse was a circus of cameras and reporters and protesters. Victor's lawyers had tried everything to delay motions appeals' procedural challenges, but the evidence was overwhelming, and the judge was unmoved. Marcus testified on day 3. The courtroom was packed. Victor sat at the defense table, looking smaller than Marcus remembered, diminished. Somehow stripped of the power and arrogance that had made him so terrifying. "Mr. Webb," the prosecutor began, "can you describe what happened on the morning of January 15th at the Grandview Hotel?" Marcus recounted the fire, the smoke, the woman trapped in room 714, the desperate climb down 7 floors of hell. "And did you know who you were rescuing at that time?" "No, I didn't learn her identity until later that morning." "What happened later that morning?" "I had a job interview at Meridian Technologies. When I arrived, I discovered that the woman I'd saved was Catherine Blackwell, the CEO of the company." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The jury leaned forward. "And what happened during that interview?" "Miss Blackwell offered me a position Director of Security and Crisis Management. She believed the fire that nearly killed her wasn't an accident." "Was it an accident?" "No." Marcus looked directly at Victor. "It was attempted murder ordered by Victor Ashworth." Victor's lawyer jumped up. "Objection. The witness cannot testify to overruled," the judge said. "The witness may state his understanding based on evidence he directly observed." Marcus continued. "During my investigation, I discovered that Victor Ashworth had been embezzling from Meridian Technologies for years. When Miss Blackwell got close to exposing him, he hired a private security firm called Apex Solutions to eliminate her. How do you know this? Because Victor Ashworth told me himself. The courtroom went silent. Please explain. On day 3 of my employment, Victor's security team took me to a parking garage. There, Victor explicitly threatened my daughter's life if I didn't resign and leave Chicago. He told me he would make me disappear the way he'd made others disappear. Others? David Chen, the former head of security at Meridian. He was found dead in the warehouse. Victor implied responsibility for his death. Victor's lawyer launched another objection, which was overruled. The prosecutor continued. Mr. Webb, how did these threats make you feel? Marcus thought about Alexandra Chen's advice. Be a father who was terrified for his daughter's life. My daughter was 7 years old, he said, voice steady but heavy with emotion. She has a congenital heart defect that requires constant medical care. I took the job at Meridian because it was the only way I could afford her treatment. And Victor Ashworth sat across from me in that parking garage and told me that if I didn't walk away, he would destroy my family. What did you do? I told him I wasn't afraid. Were you terrified? Marcus met the jury's eyes one by one. But I have a daughter who believes I can beat any enemy, who believes that being brave means doing the right thing even when you're scared. I couldn't let her down. What happened next? I continued my investigation. I worked with Detective Reyes and the federal prosecutor, and eventually we found enough evidence to prove that Victor Ashworth was a murderer, an embezzler, and a man who would kill anyone who got in his way. Marcus turned to face Victor directly. He thought I was nobody, a failed operations manager, a desperate single father. But he was wrong. I was someone who refused to give up, and that made me the most dangerous person he'd ever faced. The prosecutor smiled slightly. No further questions. Victor's lawyer tried to discredit Marcus on cross-examination, suggested he was exaggerating, implied he was romantically involved with Catherine and had motives to lie. Marcus answered every question calmly, directly, without defensiveness. Yes, he and Catherine had developed a personal relationship. No, that didn't change the facts. Yes, he had every reason to want Victor convicted. No, he wasn't lying about anything. By the time cross-examination ended, the jury looked convinced. And Victor looked like a man watching his future collapse. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Dmitry Volkov testified about Victor's direct orders to start the fire. Financial experts traced the embezzlement. Witnesses described Victor's pattern of intimidation and violence. Victor's lawyers fought hard, but the evidence was overwhelming. On day 18, the jury delivered their verdict. Guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit murder, arson, financial fraud, obstruction of justice. Victor stood motionless as the verdicts were read. His face showed nothing, no fear, no anger, no regret, just the cold emptiness of a man who had finally run out of options. The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. Victor was let out in handcuffs, and Marcus watched him go with something that wasn't quite satisfaction. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was justice. Outside the courthouse, Catherine was waiting. She pulled him into a hug right there in front of the cameras and reporters and crowds of people. "It's over," she whispered. "It's over." "How do you feel?" Marcus considered the question. Empty, relieved, grateful. He pulled back to look at her. And ready to move on. Move on to what? To the rest of our lives, whatever that looks like. Catherine smiled a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes and transformed her entire face. "I have some ideas about that." Yeah. She took his hand. "But first, I think someone wants to see you." She led him through the crowd to a black sedan parked at the curb. The back door opened and Sophie emerged, dressed in her favorite purple dress, looking healthier than she had in years. "Daddy!" She ran to him, and Marcus caught her, lifting her into his arms, spinning her around while she shrieked with laughter. "Did you beat the bad guys?" she demanded. I beat the bad guys. Is he going to jail forever? A very long time. Good. Sophie nodded with satisfaction. He deserved it. Yeah, baby girl, he did. Sophie looked at Catherine, then back at Marcus. Can we get ice cream now? You promised winners get ice cream. I did promise that. Catherine, too. Marcus looked at Catherine, who was watching them with an expression of pure warmth. Catherine, too. Then let's go. I want chocolate with sprinkles. They walked together through the Chicago streets. Marcus and Sophie and Catherine passed the cameras and the crowds and the chaos toward a small ice cream shop that Marcus had discovered months ago. A family. Improbable, imperfect, built from fire and tragedy, and stubborn refusal to give up. But a family nonetheless. Summer arrived with heat and humidity and endless possibilities. Sophie's recovery was complete. She ran through parks, climbed jungle gyms, did everything she'd dreamed of doing when her heart wasn't strong enough to let her. Grace had settled into Chicago life better than anyone expected. She'd found a job at a bakery near their apartment, making friends with the regulars, becoming the unofficial grandmother of the entire neighborhood. You look happy, Grace told Marcus one evening, watching him prepare dinner while Sophie helped Catherine set the table. I am happy. I wasn't sure you remembered how. Marcus paused, knife hovering over vegetables. What do you mean? After Jennifer left. After the job loss. You were surviving, Marcus, but you weren't living. Grace's voice was soft. I watched you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, never asking for help, never admitting you were struggling. It scared me. I didn't want to burden you. You're my son. Nothing you do is a burden. Grace reached out, touched his arm. But watching you now with Sophie, with Catherine, I see the boy I raised, the one who laughed easily and loved deeply and believed that good things were possible. I'm not sure I ever stopped believing that. No, but you forgot how to hope. Grace smiled. You remember now. Marcus looked at the table where Sophie was explaining to Catherine the exact proper placement of forks, a lesson she'd learned from a YouTube video and was now treating as sacred law. Yeah, he said. I remember. The proposal happened on Sophie's 8th birthday. Marcus had planned it for weeks, coordinating with Sophie, who was very enthusiastic about the plan and very bad at keeping secrets. When are you going to ask her? Sophie whispered loudly during breakfast. Sophie, she's standing right there. Ask her what? Catherine looked up from her coffee. Nothing, Sophie said way too quickly. Daddy's not going to ask you anything. Definitely not today. Just a normal birthday. Catherine raised an eyebrow at Marcus. He shrugged innocently. The party was at the apartment, streamers and balloons, and a cake that Grace had spent 3 days perfecting. Sophie's friends from school came along with a few adults Marcus had grown close to over the months, Detective Reyes Robert, from the Meridian security team, even Alexandra Chen, who had never quite lost her sharp edges, but had developed a soft spot for Sophie. After the cake, after the presents, after the chaos of 8-year-olds running wild through the apartment, Marcus clinked a spoon against his glass. Before we wrap up, I have an announcement. The room quieted. Sophie bounced on her feet, barely containing herself. Actually, Sophie has an announcement. All eyes turned to the birthday girl, who suddenly looked nervous. Sophie swallowed. Daddy wants to ask Catherine something. And he wanted me to help, because Catherine isn't just his girlfriend friend anymore. She's family. My family. And families should stick together. She pulled a small velvet box from her pocket, the same box Marcus had given her that morning with strict instructions. So, Catherine? Sophie walked toward her holding the box like it was made of glass. My daddy wants to know if you'll marry him, and be my other mom, and live with us forever. She opened the box to reveal a simple diamond ring. Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. Marcus stepped forward, took the box from Sophie, knelt in front of Catherine. I had this whole speech prepared, he said, about how you saved my life, about how you gave me hope when I had none, about how every day with you makes me believe that good things are possible. Marcus, but Sophie said everything that matters. Your family. You've been family since the moment you trusted a desperate man who ran into fire, and I want to spend the rest of my life earning that trust. He held up the ring. Catherine Blackwell, will you marry me? Catherine was crying, laughing, both at once. Yes, she managed. Yes, absolutely yes. Marcus slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her while everyone cheered, and Sophie jumped up and down, shouting, "She said yes, I told you she'd say yes." Later, after the guests had left and Sophie was asleep, and Grace had retreated to her room with a knowing smile, Marcus and Catherine sat on the balcony watching the city lights flicker. "You planned that with Sophie?" She insisted. Said proposals are supposed to be special and she wanted to be part of it. She's something else. She's everything. Marcus took Catherine's hand, studying the ring on her finger. When I ran into that fire, I wasn't thinking about the future. I was thinking about survival, mine, yours, Sophie's. One day at a time, one crisis at a time. And now I'm thinking about years, decades, a lifetime. He looked at her. Is that crazy? Extremely crazy. Catherine leaned into him. But I've always preferred crazy to boring. Good, because our life is never going to be boring. No, she agreed. It's going to be complicated and messy and occasionally terrifying. But also wonderful. Also wonderful. She kissed him softly. I love you, Marcus Webb. I love you too, Catherine Blackwell, soon to be Catherine Webb. Actually, I was thinking Catherine Blackwell Webb. Hyphenated. Sophie suggested it. She said both names are important and we shouldn't have to choose. Marcus laughed. She would. She's very opinionated for an 8-year-old. Gets it from her grandmother. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city below, millions of lives playing out in buildings and streets and homes, each one a story of struggle and hope, and the endless human capacity for love. Can I tell you something? Catherine asked. Anything. Before the fire, before any of this, I was planning to retire, sell the company, take the money, disappear somewhere quiet. I was tired, Marcus. Tired of fighting, tired of winning, tired of being alone, even when I was surrounded by people. What changed? You. She turned to face him. You ran into a burning building for a stranger. You refused to take credit or accept reward. You stood up to Victor Ashworth when everyone else was too scared. And you did all of it while raising a daughter and caring for your mother and carrying more weight than any person should have to carry alone. I wasn't alone. I had Sophie. I had my mom. But you felt alone. I could see it the first time we met. That same loneliness I recognized in myself. Catherine touched his face. We found each other, Marcus. In the fire and the chaos and the fear, we found each other. And I don't believe that was accident. Fate. I believe in choices. You chose to run into that building. I chose to trust you. We chose to fight together. And now we're choosing to build a life. She smiled. That's not fate. That's just two people refusing to give up on the possibility of happiness. I like that better than fate. Me too. The wedding was small, held in the same park where Marcus had first learned to hope again. Sophie served as flower girl and ring bearer and maid of honor. She had very strong opinions about combining roles. Grace officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. I've known Marcus his entire life, Grace said, standing before the gathered friends and family. I've watched him grow from a curious boy into a determined man. I've watched him fall and get back up, fail and try again, lose everything and rebuild from nothing. She looked at Catherine. And I've watched him find something I wasn't sure he'd ever find again. Not just love, though there's plenty of that, but hope. The belief that tomorrow can be better than today. The certainty that good things are worth fighting for. Grace turned back to the crowd. Marriage isn't about perfect people making perfect promises. It's about imperfect people choosing each other every day, choosing to show up, to try to forgive, to keep building, even when everything falls apart. She smiled at Marcus and Catherine. These two have already proven they know how to do that. They've faced fire and corruption and threats. They've protected each other, supported each other, believed in each other when nobody else did. Grace's voice cracked slightly. So it's my honor, my absolute joy, to ask Marcus, do you take Catherine to be your wife? To love her, stand by her, and never stop fighting for the life you're building together? I do. Catherine, do you take Marcus to be your husband? To love him, stand by him, and never stop believing in the man who ran into fire to save a stranger? I do. Then, by the power vested in me by the internet and the state of Illinois, I pronounce you husband and wife. Grace grinned. You may kiss the bride. Marcus pulled Catherine close and kissed her, while Sophie cheered and threw flower petals in the air, and the small crowd applauded. When they finally broke apart, Sophie wedged herself between them. Does this mean I can call you Mom now? Catherine looked at Marcus, then at Sophie. What do you want to call me, Mom? Sophie said it like it was obvious. You're my mom now. That's how it works. Then I'd be honored to be your mom. Sophie hugged her fiercely. Good, because I already told everyone at school. Sophie. What? It's not a secret anymore. Marcus laughed, pulling both of them close. His wife, his daughter, his family. Not the family he'd planned, not the family he'd imagined as a young man with dreams of stability and predictability. Something better, something forged in fire and tempered by struggle, and stronger for every challenge they'd faced. The reception was held at Catherine's company headquarters, Meridian Technologies, now thriving under her leadership, rebuilt from the ashes of Victor's corruption. Detective Reyes approached Marcus during the dancing, a glass of champagne in her hand. Nice wedding. Thanks for coming. Wouldn't have missed it. Reyes studied him. You know, when I first met you outside that hotel covered in ash and refusing to give a statement, I thought you were just another witness who would disappear the moment things got complicated. I almost did. But you didn't. You stayed. You fought. You helped bring down one of the most dangerous criminals I've ever encountered. Reyes raised her glass. You're a good man, Marcus Webb. I'm just a father who refused to give up. That's the same thing. They clinked glasses. What happened to Dmitry Volkov? Marcus asked. After he testified, witness protection, new identity, new location. He'll spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, but at least he'll have a life. And Victor, 25 years to life, no parole. Reyes smiled grimly. He'll die in prison. Good. I thought you might say that. Sophie appeared, dragging Catherine by the hand. Daddy, Catherine says I can have more cake. Catherine says, Mom. Sophie grinned. She says I can have more cake because it's a wedding, and weddings mean extra dessert. Marcus looked at Catherine, who shrugged. I'm new at this mom thing. I might be doing it wrong. You're doing it perfectly. Later, as the reception wound down and guests began to leave, Marcus stood at the window looking out at the Chicago skyline. The same skyline he'd seen from that hotel room moments before his life changed forever. Grace found him there. Penny, for your thoughts. I was thinking about the fire, how close I came to losing everything before I even knew what everything was. But you didn't lose it. No. Marcus turned to face his mother. Because of you. Because you raised me to never give up. Because you taught me that family is worth fighting for. Grace's eyes glistened. I just did what any mother would do. No. You did more. You sacrificed. You struggled. You gave up things you wanted so that I could have things I needed. Marcus pulled her into a hug. Thank you, Mom, for everything. Oh, stop! But Grace was crying. You're going to make me ruin my makeup. Can't have that. Sophie would be very disappointed. Sophie's standards are terrifyingly high. Gets it from her grandmother. Grace laughed through her tears. I love you, Marcus. I love you too, Mom. Sophie and Catherine found them there, still holding each other. Group hug, Sophie declared, pulling Catherine forward. Family group hug. The four of them stood together, Marcus and Grace and Catherine and Sophie, arms wrapped around each other, holding tight to the family they had built through struggle and hope and the stubborn refusal to let life defeat them. This is the best day, Sophie announced. Better than your birthday? Marcus asked. Better than everything. Sophie pulled back, her face serious. Can I tell you guys something? Anything, baby. When I was in the hospital before my surgery, I made a wish. I wished that we would all be together forever. That we would be a family. Sophie looked at each of them in turn. And now we are. My wish came true. Catherine knelt to Sophie's level. You know I made a wish too. That night in the fire when I thought I was going to die. What did you wish? I wished for someone to save me, and someone did. Catherine looked at Marcus. Your daddy saved my life, and then he saved my heart. That's so romantic, Sophie said approvingly. I'm going to write that in my diary. You have a diary. Grandma gave me one. I write everything in it. Everything. Everything. Marcus made a mental note to never, ever read that diary. The night ended with them walking home through the Chicago streets, a family of four, now bound by love and choice and the shared experience of surviving impossible things. Sophie fell asleep on Marcus's shoulder before they reached the apartment. He carried her upstairs, tucked her into bed, watched her breathe for a moment before returning to the living room. Catherine and Grace were sitting together talking quietly about nothing and everything. I should get to bed, Grace said, standing. It's been a long day. The best day, Marcus said. One of many. Grace kissed his cheek. Good night, son. Good night, daughter. Catherine